See that plane? There's an airplane right above that car as it went by, and he's turning to the left. And now I can't see him. There he is. All right, he was out here yesterday, and there he is again, and he's spraying some black kind of chemicals all out through that area here in Texas. And that area is not agriculture. That's just mesquite. That's just wild land. But he's just going around and around, just spraying all kinds of stuff all over the place, across the road. I got into his trail of black dust because he crossed the road yesterday. He's just flying back and forth out there. You can see all that land is just wild mesquite. There's no agriculture out there at all anywhere. He's been doing this for several days. Just blanketing the whole countryside with some sort of black smoke. Very low to the ground. Right now he's over there, but he goes all over the place, just real low to the ground. You see, there's the crop duster. He's over the mesquite there. He's not over the grass, and that's not corn or anything that he would be spraying. But he's way over there in the mesquite. I mean, I've taken every angle around here, and what he's spraying is just mesquite, just wild mesquite, animals and bugs. And he saw me as I drove out there, got out of my truck, took a picture, and it looked like he saw me and made a beeline and got out of there. I mean, I doubt whether he left because of me, but boy, he sure took off when he saw me filming him. There he goes. Bye-bye. Anyway, I have no idea. Well, hello friends, I'm David Vose. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I would tell you I'm having a wonderful day, but if I did that, I wouldn't be telling you completely the truth. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, the weather is fine, the temperature is great. I was having a really good day. I was actually driving into town, and you know, what did I see? There was a plane overhead dropping chemicals all over the ground. And you see, actually, I saw this yesterday, but I didn't get a picture of it because I was driving and I didn't think to stop and take video of it. But this airplane was going right in front of me, and he was about to cross the highway. And I thought, boy, I sure hope I don't meet him at the very moment he's going overhead, because he's dumping, you could see this big plume of dark, dusty chemicals coming out of the plane. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to end up, if I don't stop this car right now and wait about 30 minutes for that to settle, or maybe an hour, I don't know how long it's going to take for all this stuff to settle, I'm not going to be able to get home. So I had to gun it and try to get under him before this plume of chemicals hit my car. Of course, I could roll my windows up and I could go, but I had my dogs in the back of the truck, and they're open. They're in the back of the truck. They would have been completely covered in these chemicals. And I had to think fast because I had about 3 seconds to either gun it or stop. And so I went ahead and I gunned it, and I got under the airplane just before he crossed over. I hope that the dogs weren't harmed at all. I hope that, I got through in time. It looks like I did. And I just took off and didn't even look back. But, and I almost forgot about it. Not really. I mean, it worried me. It bothered me all day. And this morning I'd kind of forgotten about it, and I was heading back to town. And sure enough, here's that darn airplane flying around out there. And I had the same thought today as I had yesterday. I thought, what is that guy doing? Because there's no agriculture in this area. There is no corn here. There's no cotton. There's no grains of alfalfa or wheat or rice or anything in this area. It's just nothing but mesquite. And I thought, what in the world? It's not even the time of year. It's not, the crops haven't even really started growing because it's just, winter is just getting over. It didn't seem to me like it'd be a very good time for a crop duster. And so, and obviously this plane was just flying over the mesquite, back and forth, and you could see the smoke coming out the back of the plane. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, surely they're not just spraying the grass and all the trees and the animals and the birds and the coyotes and all the deer and the little piggies and the ranches. They're going over ranches and barns and roads. And I thought, this is sick. There's no possible way. So I took some of this video for you guys. Now, you're not going to see a lot in the video because I just happened to get there at a particular time, and he was kind of in the distance, so I didn't get real good footage. Some of this you're going to have to trust me. But I went home and I did some research because I thought, I don't know what's going on here. And here's what I found. Now, I'm going to read you a little bit of this from this website, because it's pretty much the same information on all of these other different websites I went to. But what I was looking for was, why were they spraying the mesquite and all the animals and barns and everything, and not cornfields? So at first what I found was that there's a big problem in my area, from Amarillo to Abilene, to Wichita Falls, to Dallas, all this area. They grow a lot of cotton. There's a terrible toxin that they put all over the cotton, I guess. It just kills everything. And, but anyway, so I was reading about that and some other very highly toxic chemicals that they're dumping all over the fields and houses and farms and across the highways. People are complaining and complaining. There's been some lawsuits. Let me read this here. This article says, it's December in Quitaque, or Quitaque. I'm not sure how to pronounce that town, even though it's near where I live, within 100 miles of here. I remember somebody told me how to pronounce that name, Quitaque or Quitaque, I can't remember. But it says, from dusk till dawn, convoys of trucks brimming with freshly picked cotton barrel down Highway 86, destined for the gins in the nearby Silverton and Roaring Springs. There are giant vacuums drawing the cotton into the bellies of the whirring machines. And anyway, it goes on and on talking about this industry and the cotton farming, big business in the area. $2.2 billion industry in this area around Quitaque or Silverton. It's east of Amarillo. It says it's the heart of the economy in that area, the cotton convoys rushing up and down the highway. It says that this town of Quitaque and all this area around Amarillo and Abilene and all this area, says it's under a siege by crop dusters, pilots hired by farmers to spray pesticides on the fields to kill the weeds and prepare the cotton plants for harvest. See, in this particular case, they're literally spraying poison. That's what they're doing, spraying poison, like Roundup or some kind of weird chemical that literally kills all the weeds to prepare for the cotton. And this article says sometimes the pilots miss their mark and inadvertently deliver a cloud of poison to people, plants, and animals. Well, now think about that. It's not inadvertent. There's all kinds of animals underneath this aeroplane. There could be bunny rabbits out there all over the place, squirrels and birds and everything else. There's not inadvertent at all. They just simply don't care how many of these little animals are going to die. And of course, the wind is blowing and all of these chemicals are drifting onto nearby farms and children playing and stuff. So it's not really inadvertent. But it goes on. It says, Beck has first-hand experience with the chemical drift problem, as regulators call it. In May of 2016, a duster spraying a field near Beck's house sent an off-target blast of paraquat dichloride, a toxic pesticide, wafting over his home. The next day, he noticed that his vegetable garden and the fruit trees were starting to show signs of being poisoned, which he blames on the paraquat. According to his complaint with the Texas Department of Agriculture, his biggest worry is that 3 of his grandkids were playing outside when the chemicals drifted through his property. He says, I remember thinking, boy, that ain't good, because they're all exposed to it, Beck said. In the following days, Beck's granddaughters complained of headaches, difficulty breathing, problems that he attributed to the pesticide exposure. The use of paraquat is tightly regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, because of the chemical's extreme toxicity. Tightly regulated? Really? They're spraying it all over our fields? I mean, I'm just reading an article about my area. I'm certain that this is going on throughout Ohio, Indiana, Nebraska, New Mexico, Texas, every state in the nation practically where they're doing any kind of agriculture. They're spraying pesticides all over. Even if they don't do it from an airplane in every area, which I don't know if they do or don't. But we know that whether it be through tractors or whatever means, they are pouring all of these poisons and pesticides all over our land. And all of the animals are probably getting sick and maybe even genetically mutated from all of these chemicals and toxins that are spreading all over the world. We never even think about this. But the crazy thing is, in my area and most of the Midwest, they're dumping it night and day from dawn to dusk all over the countryside from the air, and you're being bombarded with it. It says it can cause death in humans, and even limited exposure can be corrosive to the skin and the eyes. According to a risk assessment conducted by the agency, a 2009 UCLA study found that people exposed to paraquat are 3 times more likely to develop Parkinson's disease, and the chemical has been banned by the European Union and in China. See, China, those terrible Chinese that are polluting the earth and everything, they ban this. But over here in America, we spread it around like it's mayonnaise on a sandwich all over the fields, all over our homes, all over our towns and cities and roads. And we think nothing of it. It says the label printed on containers of gramaoxone, a widely used pesticide whose active ingredient is paraquat, warns against breathing the chemical mist and says to seek medical attention immediately if the poison comes into contact with the skin or the clothing. Based on interviews with 11 people in Quitaki, it appears that the chemical drifted at least 5 miles. Its path started behind Beck's house on the south side of town, cutting a swath through the downtown and moving further east where it spread to more rural areas. In its path were trees, gardens, livestock, pets, and people. Kim Reese, who runs a commercial organic garden in Quitaki, claims the pesticide made her nose bleed. That was so weird. I never have a bloody nose, she said. Over the next few days, the fruits and vegetables in her garden all died. The leaves of the plants were pocked with what she described as cigarette burns. They kept getting bigger. Reese said she lost $8,000 worth of produce, and that's in addition to the adverse effects of being exposed to the pesticide before the fall harvest each year, when farmers hire crop dusters to spray cotton fields. Usually they are defoliating the cotton. I spend a good portion of that time being sick, she said, and they call it allergies. I call it being defoliated. It's a strange place to choose to live in. Friends, have you ever wondered why just about everybody you know has these allergies, like at a certain time of the year? Oh, it's that time of year. Well, isn't it possible that it's just all the chemicals that you're allergic to? I mean, really, would our Father in heaven create our human body so that we're just constantly allergic to peanuts or we're allergic to grass? I don't think we're allergic to grass. We're allergic to all these poisons that they're putting on the grass. I wouldn't doubt it. It says about a month later in June, a Quidaki farmer and rancher, C.L. Hawkins, was repairing a fence in one of his fields when he said the wind carried a wave of pesticides onto him. I was working on a fence right across the road and he was spraying. Boy, I just went ahead and got out of there, said Hawkins, who complained to the TDA. Then in September, Quitaki wheat farmer and cattle rancher Paul Teagarden reported to the agency that the pesticide drifted onto grass he uses to feed his beef cattle. Though it was the first time he had filed a formal complaint, Teagarden said his land has been under assault by crop dusters for at least 2 years. The stuff they're using is pretty stout, he said. I'm bordered with cotton on one side and cotton on the other side. I hardly have any of my grass left. He said he worries about the health of his cattle, which sometimes eat the vegetation that comes into contact with the paraquat. TDA, the agency charged with enforcing state and federal pesticide application rules, fielded complaints from 40 Quidaki residents, more than 10% of the population, as a result of 3 incidents. The investigation is ongoing, but complaints have cast blame on at least 2 aerial application companies, one of which is run by Luke Bodecker, the president of an association that lobbies state officials on behalf of crop dusters. Well, anyway, I could go on and on about these lawsuits that are going on around here, and people that are dying and getting sick, and nosebleeds and headaches, and on and on and on. But what I wanted to know is what was going on here today. It's not the season for crops, and there wasn't any agriculture where this was being sprayed. It was being done out there in the mesquite. And I thought, because I've noticed areas around here where you'll go for miles and all the mesquite's dead. It's all dried up and turned brown and dies. And I'm like, what's going on? I was thinking in my mind when I would be driving by these areas where all the mesquite died. I was thinking, they're probably poisoning them. And there were times when I thought, well, maybe they're being poisoned by all the oil that they're drilling. Because it's some of these areas where they're drilling oil. I thought maybe they were being contaminated by that. Because I've got some actual property over here where there's oil spilled all over the ground. And in that area, the mesquite was dying. So I thought maybe that was it. But it didn't look like that was it because there wasn't any oil on the ground. But it was just acres and acres and acres and acres of dead mesquite. And so I had suspicions before this. But look at what I found in this article. It says, revving and roaring, a yellow and blue crop duster lifts off into the bright big country sky, picking up speed and cutting through the air like a chainsaw splitting a log. The plane lurches groundward at a 60-degree angle, reaching 145 miles an hour and leveling out a story or two above the ground. Below it lies the Rinderbrook Spade Ranch, a cattle operation in Mitchell County near Abilene. The pilot hits a switch in the cockpit, releasing a steady spray of thousands of pounds of herbicide, Sendero, onto the mesquite trees below. The plane veers east, gaining altitude before diving for another attack. It's nearly nightfall before the siege is done. The siege on the mesquite? Really? And do you not know that there are birds and raccoons and pigs and deer and everything else out there in that mesquite? Perhaps even little children wandering around playing, fishing or something? Sendero is marketed as a new standard in mesquite control. Oh, let's call it mesquite control. See, you're not just controlling the mesquite. You're controlling the grass. You're controlling the bugs that are in the dirt. The entire ecosystem is being wiped off the face of the map with all these pesticides. A popular choice because of its ability to ravage leaves and infect the roots. But a little more than a week after the July 2015 incident, David Stubberfield, a neighboring cotton farmer, was faced with the death of 2,000 acres worth of his crop. Oh, so it's actually affecting the very people that are using other pesticides for their crops. They're getting attacked by other people's poisons for their crops, right? This is crazy. We couldn't figure out what the heck it was, said Stubberfield, a lifeline cotton farmer. And then I'm just sitting there wondering, am I going to have anything left? In talking to neighbors, he soon found out he wasn't the only farmer who had suffered major crop losses. 6 Mitchell County farmers eventually filed complaints with the TDA claiming pesticides dripped in connection with the July incident. 3 weeks later, as state investigators were scheduling initial interviews with those farmers, a similar mesquite assault was carried out at Rocker B Ranch in the nearby Reagan County. Soon, the farmers whose fields bordered the ranch watched as their cotton plants' leaves blistered and boils shriveled. 8 people filed complaints with the TDA in that case. Lauderdale Aerial Spraying, a firm based in Caldwell, was eventually fined $600 for the incident. $600? Oh my goodness. We got hit bad, said Lachey Brandon, who owns 1,000-acre cotton farm near Rocker B Ranch. We didn't get much cotton out of that field. What we did get rated lower and brought lower prices. It's been really hard on the family. A few months later, the Mitchell and Reagan County farmers would take matters into their own hands, joining as plaintiffs in 2 lawsuits to sue Helena Chemical Company, a farmer chemical industry giant that regularly finds itself on the wrong side of the state regulators. According to the lawsuit, owners of the ranchers hired Helena to coordinate a pesticide airstrike on the mesquite. Helena, in turn, hired Lauderdale to do the work. The lawsuit claimed that Helena chemical drifts resulted in human exposure, crop loss, water, and soil contamination. Together, they alleged $10 million in damages. Both cases are pending. It says that same year, a woman in Covington reported that a company sprayed her property, killing trees, her vegetable garden, and making her dog so sick it required going to the veterinarian. In 2013, rancher and conservationist Gary Price alleged that Lauderdale was responsible for drifting paraquat onto his ranch 70 miles south of Fort Worth, contaminating his herd of all-natural beef cattle so severely that the high-end supermarket he supplies refused to buy the cows. Price filed a lawsuit that was settled in 2015. Though it wasn't listed as a defendant in the case, Helena was named in the complaint as the entity that prepared the chemicals for Lauderdale's application. Anyway, I won't go any further with reading about this, but here's the deal. We are being attacked all over the Midwest. I mean, literally everywhere in the United States, and I assume in Australia and everywhere else in the world, although it says that China has banned some of these chemicals. But here in America, they're just dumping all of these chemicals all over the ground. And you might think, or maybe you knew, that they were doing this in fields of corn and cotton. But did you know? I did not. They are literally throughout Texas and probably everywhere else in the world dumping a chemical so poisonous that it destroys the entire plant right down to the root. And thousands, perhaps millions of acres are being completely destroyed. And if it's killing the mesquite, which is what they're trying to do, then what do you suppose it's doing to all the animals, the insects, the fish, the birds, everything in that entire ecological system? We are under an attack, friends. And I suppose this has been going on for years. And perhaps that's why there's so much asthma and there's so many allergies and so many deaths and cancers and everything else going on in this country. That's just one more reason why we're going down the tubes. We don't know what's happening. We're being attacked. We're under assault. And this particular world that we live in is not sustainable. We can't keep living in this environment. It's making us sick. Physically, yes. And mentally. And we're not happy. Why would we want to live in a world where we're not happy? Why do we want to keep doing this? You see, friends, it's only benefiting the mega rich. Those who got millions and millions of dollars and they own these huge monolithic companies like Cargill and Monsanto and all of these big companies that own all these farms and ranches throughout all of this area. Most of the farms and ranches anymore aren't even private. You know, you go through this area that I'm talking about, and you see these big, huge factories every few miles, and it's got a sign up there that says Cargill. And they're the ones that's, you know, making all of the money off the beef and the agriculture. And see, we've got these government workers out there supposedly checking to make sure that everything's safe, right? The FDA and the EPA and all these people running around making sure that we're safe. Well, it doesn't seem to me like they're doing a very good job. If they're actually on an ongoing basis dumping these chemicals from the sky onto our farms and onto our ground, onto the mesquite, literally on purpose, trying to destroy the environment. Because why? Well, they don't like the mesquite. They think it needs to go. Well, once you've killed the mesquite, you've killed the ground too. You see, you get the pesticides right into the soil. And then when you actually plant corn or any other kind of thing that we call food, then the food itself is contaminated. And that's what we're eating. And so that's why we're all dying of cancer. And that's why we're all dying of heart disease. And that's one of the reasons why we're mentally ill. And we're all on some sort of antidepressant. We're all sick in the mind. That's why nobody's happy, and that's why we need to stop it. So, I just wanted to tell you guys, I mean, it's just something I hadn't really been thinking about, because we're all talking about chemtrails and all this stuff. These airplanes are up in the sky just literally dumping chemtrails, just literally dumping poisons. But, you know, that's a no-brainer. Obviously, pollution comes out of the back of cars, trucks, as well as airplanes. We've known that for a long, long time, and they leave chemtrails. However, this is something we don't need to be doing. There has got to be other ways to grow food without poisoning all of the food and murdering the environment. I'm certain that organic farming is something that can be done. Maybe our food would cost a little bit more, but at least it would be organic, it would be healthy, and we wouldn't be destroying and murdering all of the ecological life that's growing all around us. If we keep this up, we're not only going to be sick, we're going to be dead, gone. Mother Earth is going to literally be gone if we don't stop this. And so for me, this is completely amazing. You know, I knew about crop dusting, but I didn't think about it. But, you know, this has happened to me before. I'm driving down the road, minding my own business, and I get bombarded with all these chemicals. This happened to me. It happened to my dogs yesterday. I hope they're going to be all right. They don't seem to be affected by it. But you don't know, right? You get humans that run around with these symptoms like allergies, and we just move on and go forward, and then one day they get cancer. We never know why they got cancer. Well, maybe that's why, friends. So I'm going to go ahead and go, friends. I hope you guys have a really great day. I hope somebody hears this, will maybe think about it, and maybe somebody will do something. This is what I can do. I'm going to expose the issue. And if anybody else out there has some ideas, you know, write letters to your congressmen, your senators. Let's hope that does something. Let's vote somebody into office that cares. Let's stop being Republicans and Democrats, and let's be human beings, friends. I'm going to go ahead and go. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. So I noticed that airplane went through that cloud and just parted it. That's not a chemtrail. That's just the airplane went right through the clouds and parted the heavens. Weird.